Okie doke. All right. This is just a make-believe pretend roster that we've been using in our trainings. Right now I have this sorted by alpha, and I kept things very simple. This is just going to be a one-day test administration, only a couple hundred students, so it's going to be very simple. So this is my working roster. By the way, my main download was on this first tab. This was our working folder, and then this is my roster, let's say for Algebra 1. And what I want to do is input a subtotal function so that it chops it up so I can then quickly print out my session rosters if I wanted to. All right, so what I've done is I've added my column for attendance. It depends, it's your personal preference. I personally like to keep it simple, and I only had one column for attendance, and I would ask the teachers if the student's absent, put an A, otherwise leave it blank. I know a lot of test chairs prefer a column per attendance type, so like one column for present, one column for absent, one column for invalidated. It's your personal preference. I just like the one column. So I've inserted that here. And before I start printing my rosters, I want to show you something really quickly. I had been asked this in another session. What if I accidentally assigned one student to 2 rooms? Instead of sorting this by alpha and then looking student by student to check for duplicates, there's a very easy selection criteria that you can tell Excel to highlight your duplicate cells. So really quickly, I would be in the home key. I would select the range I wanted to look for. In other words, think of the unique identifier per student, their student ID. So I'm going to ask Excel, I'm going to select the student ID column, and I'm going to ask Excel, every time you find a duplicate of a student ID, I want you to highlight it for me. So from the Home tab, I'm going to go to Conditional Formatting, and I'm going to tell it, I want you to highlight it every time you see a duplicate value. And I'm going to click that. And this is the default. It'll say, okay, every time I see a duplicate value, I'm going to fill that cell with a light red background. In other words, it comes out pink and dark red text. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I can scroll down and look for duplicate values, but remember, what you can do is just do a filter. You can filter by color. If you have 1,000, 2,000 students, you don't want to be scrolling up and down for those pink cells. So do a filter. So I'm going to go to my Data tab. I'm going to do a filter. And I'm going to tell it to filter by color. And remember, these cells have a pink background and dark red text. It doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm just going to select this one. So here are my duplicate values. I did this on purpose just to show you that I had made a mistake. So for this student right here, look at what I did. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, just so that I could highlight it for you, I put my extended time rooms in yellow, just so that I remembered, okay, my ESOL and my ESE rooms are a different color in case I accidentally put a standard curriculum student in that room. And that's the only reason I did that. And it's just to show you guys what I did. So for this student right here, I have him assigned to both 4102 and 5100. 5100 is one of my extended time rooms, so I definitely don't want the student in there. So I have the student listed twice. All I need to do, and of course, I would do my due diligence. I would go and I would check either through DSYS or my original file download to make sure the student was standard curriculum and didn't need extended time. And all I need to do, since the student is listed twice on my roster, I'm just going to delete the room or the row that I don't want the student in. So I don't want the student in this room. So I'm just going to delete the row. And then for this student, this is an ESOL level 1 student, and I have them assigned to both the standard curriculum room and my ESOL room. So I'm going to take them out of this room. Okay, I'm going to clear the filter out. And by the way, if I wanted to get rid of that, duplicate value formatting, I would go back to conditional formatting, and I would say clear rules on the entire sheet. Okay, any questions so far? I know a lot of you know that, but some people don't. So I just wanted to make sure that that's a quick and easy way to find duplicates. All right, so let's start formatting this for my roster. You can be as fancy or as simple as you want. I've got an attendance column. Like I said, you can put in more columns if you want to. Sometimes I like to put in directions. So I'm going to insert a row. And I am just going to, by the way, all I'm doing is formatting. I inserted a row. I'm selecting the length of my table, and I'm just going to merge and center because I just want one big cell here. I'm going to put my directions, and my directions are always real simple. Please indicate if a student is absent by marking A in the attendance column. And I can bold this, I can make the text bigger, I can make this window bigger if I want to, whatever I want. All right, so now, because that's on my first row, that's going to show up on every page. So let's continue formatting this. Let me get rid of my filters. Let's see. I want to, let me go to page layout. And page layout has a lot of quick little easy things that I can do just to format so everything looks pretty. I want these two rows to be on top of every page. If I were to print it right now, as you can see how my header, oh, I have my header rows in there. I did a lesson before this, so I'm sorry guys, I didn't clear that out. Anyway, if I want both of these rows repeated on the top of each page, what I would do is go to print title. So I'm in my page layout tab, go to print titles, and I want to tell it that I want, whoops, I'm going to click on, see where it says rows to repeat on top, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to select these two rows. So that way these two rows are on top of each page as I do it. I hit enter. All right, so let me go to page. I want this to be wide, so I'm going to put it in landscape mode. My margins, you can play with them, but I'm going to show you something really quick that you can do as you're printing it. Header and footer. You can get as fancy or as basic as you want. I'm going to go to my header. Yeah, here's where you can put the school name. Whoops. You can put the type of test it is. Let's say this is FSA, Algebra, EOC, whatever you want. Maybe spring, whoops, I'm a terrible typist. Maybe spring 2020, whatever you want. I'm gonna hit OK. Now in my footer, and Dharma gave me this idea. I had never done this before, but when Dharma would do her rosters, she would have a footer on the bottom, and she would have the test administrator sign. So she would make a signature line for the test administrator and a signature line for herself. And all I'm doing is hitting the dash key and the shift to make an underline thing. And this is for the school assessment coordinator. And then over here, the takeaway for me was this. In the right-hand column, you know how, I don't know if this happens to you, but whenever a test is underway, within the first 15 minutes, my principal wanted to know the participation rate because he needed to report it to the district, to the region. So this is a quick and easy thing to do. You can put down here just a little space. Here, let me do this. You can say number of students absent, and then just put a little line, and then the test administrator can quickly say, okay, in this room we had 2 students absent. And then if you wanted to, you can put number of students present, number of students invalidated, whatever, anything that you want there. But that was a quick and easy thing to do in the footer. So by the header and the footer, you're going to have those same, the header and footer will appear on every sheet that you print out. All right, I'm going to hit OK. All right, so let's see what this looks like. I'm going to go to print preview. And by the way, if everything does not fit on your sheet, just so you know, there's a scaling option here that you can go into print preview. If I don't have any scale, let's pretend I notice that there are some columns that are chopped off that are not making it. You can very quickly, instead of going back and forth with the margins, you can go to print, come down here to where it says scaling, click on that, and you want to fit all columns on one page. Now keep in mind what this will do is it might make the font a little smaller, so you need to be careful with this, but that's a very quick way of making sure everything fits on one page so that you're not messing with the margins continuously. All right, now let's go to why we're doing this, the data subtotal. So what a lot of people do at this point is they filter by room number, they copy and paste, they make different tabs, or they insert page breaks. We're going to do a data subtotal function. So the first thing you do when you do a data subtotal function is first you sort it in the way you want it printed out. So since this is a room roster, we're going to need to sort it by room number. So we're going to come here, and we're going to do a quickie sort. So now I have it sorted by room number. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to come over here to subtotal, and I'm going to click on that. All right, it's going to ask me, where do you want, what do you want me to do, or what criteria do you want me to change it by? And what I want to do is I want to change it. Remember, we're grouping it by test room number. So I'm going to group it by test room. I don't group it by teacher just in case I have two teachers with the same name. Now, each student has one unique room number. So that's what we're going to first group it by room number. And it asks me what function. There's a lot of functions here. For our purposes, we're just going to ask it to give us a count. So what it's going to do is going to separate the students by room number. And at the bottom of the room number, it's going to give me a count of how many students are in that room. Excuse me. And then here, it asks me, well, where do you want me to put that subtotal? Where do you want me to put that count? And you can do it anywhere. I just want it at the bottom of my test room column. So at the bottom of my test room column, it's going to separate it and give me the count of students or the count of rows in that test room column. And then here, I can either leave my list like this if I don't want to split it up by room number, or I click right here. And this is what makes this so incredible. Click page break between groups. In other words, it's going to insert a page break. In other words, every time the room number changes, it's going to start a new page. All right, so I'm going to hit OK. All right, so I get this. What does this mean? Look at what it's done. So as you can see, every time the room number changes, it gives me the count for that room. And then see this dotted line, it starts a new page. Now the beauty of this is I didn't have to break this up and make a bunch of different worksheets. And this tells me the grouping levels. So the first grouping level is everybody. The second grouping level, and look at how cool this is. So this is my grouping level, like everything is expanded. But if I click 2, look at what it does. It collapses it by the second grouping level, which is the count of each room. So this quickly tells me, okay, I know that I have 9 students in this room. So this will help me make sure that I haven't overfilled a room. And then also for my extended time rooms, I want to make sure that those groups are. So if I need to expand everyone, I just click on 3. And if I just wanted to expand one room, I could. These plus signs right here would expand each individual room. I minus it to collapse it. So I'm going to expand everything. And then the beauty of this is now you can print. And by the way, I know that some of you like to select everything and put borders. If you select everything and put borders on everything, you can do that by doing this. Or what I used to do, and again, personal preference, in the page layout, there's a print menu for grid lines. And what this does is if you select the print box, it will, as long as you have data in that cell, it will automatically put a border around it. Again, personal preference. That's what I prefer to do. All right, we are ready to print. Look what happens. So I go to File, and I go to Print. And now, everything, let me move you guys out of the way. Everything now is on a different page. And those are my rosters. Neat, huh?
This is awesome.
Yeah. Another thing, and by the way, when we're done, I'm going to, and this is what I had started to do before the session began, and all of a sudden it was 9:30. I was like, I'm going to put a start and an end. So I'm going to put my Algebra 1 start where I haven't done anything, and then I'll put an Algebra 1 roster end, and I'm going to send it to you guys so you can see the difference. Any questions on the roster preparation? Okay. Another thing, and this idea I got from Dharma, are notices. I know that there's been a lot of questions about, well, and it's one thing that we noticed when we were having our sessions with school assessment coordinators about getting notices out to teachers, you know, their responsibility, so on and so forth. I know every school does something different. This is something Dharma used to do. So she had her roster, and on this roster, she had the homeroom teacher and the, you know, obviously their homeroom number. And then she would use a data subtotal for her notices, and she would do it in two ways. One way would be, so she grouped it by the homeroom teacher's name. She would do her data subtotal. So again, we go to data, we go to subtotal. We are going to group this by homeroom teacher. We are going to ask it to do a count. You don't have to do a count, but it's helpful sometimes for the homeroom teacher to figure out, okay, how many kids do I have to worry about? And then we're going to put that subtotal under the homeroom teacher's name. Now, she used to do this in two ways. The first way, she would not do a page break. And what she used to do is, so you hit OK. All right. And as you see, this is a little, what I used to do is I just used to give them the big Excel sheet. But this kind of makes it a little easier for them to read because they go straight to their name and they can see, okay, for this guy, these are the students that they have to worry about. So it's very easy to chunk it for them, and it looks less intimidating for them. Otherwise, I know a lot of teachers would do highlighters and get that out, and they'd have a big, huge list to go through. This is a little easier for them to manage. And what she would do is she would just then email this sheet to every teacher in the building. They would go to their name, and they would find the students that they needed to send to a testing room. And then she would also go back to her subtotal function and also insert a page break. And then for those, she would split them up and put it in their mailboxes so that she could print these out, because if you insert the page break now, it's going to put each teacher's group of students on a separate page, and then she would print it. And now each student has their own roster of students. I didn't do the formatting, hold on. So let me go back to page layout. Let me go back to print titles. And I want the first two rows to repeat. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to put grid lines. And now it'll look a little prettier. There we go.
Can you do that one more time?
Say that again?
Can you do that one more time? So
of course. Let me clear it out. Let me clear it out. You want the print titles, right?
Yeah, and the grid line, please.
Okay. And again, it's personal preference. Most people, what I've seen is they'll select the whole sheet. They'll hit Control-A, select the whole sheet, and then put borders. I didn't do that because every time you added a student, I'd have to go back and do that again. Again, personal preference is just what you prefer. I want the first and second rows repeated on every single page that's printed out. So I'm going to go to print titles. Oops. Print titles, and I'm going to rows to repeat at the top. I'm going to click on this right here, and it's asking me what range, what are you talking about? And I just select the entire row, and I want the first two rows. See the dollar sign? That means everything to the right of the first row and everything to the right of the second row. And I'm going to hit, I literally hit enter, and I hit OK. And then for the grid lines in the page layout view, all you have to do, by the way, if I think the view check mark is default, if I take away the view, it basically takes all the grid lines away and everything is really white. So if you, for whatever reason, wanted a stark white Excel document, you could do that. But I think this is default, just to make things easy to read. But when I print it out, I click on this. And it doesn't matter if I keep adding students, it will automatically then put borders around the cells of that student. And by the way, all of these, if you just go to the page layout and go to the page setup menu, scroll through each of these. This will help you if you want to put it in landscape or portrait. This is to fiddle with your margins. This is to insert headers and footers. And then here, this is to repeat the rows on top. And all of these have a print preview option that you can click and go straight to print preview and then see what it looks like. And that looks a little better. But I'm basic as basic can be. Other people have the most gorgeous Excel documents with lots of colors. I didn't. So, and again, personal preference, it's up to you. Now, I know I went through this quickly, but as you can see, this is a very simple but incredibly useful function that I never knew about it. Again, Dharma figured this out, but it's a really easy way to split up your rosters to print them out.